What are the dumbest financial decisions you have ever made? I will start. 1. I sank 80% of my net worth into stocks in May 2019, and sold when they bottomed in March 2020, 2 or 3 days before the Fed rolled out. Then I bought options with the remaining money I had left, and lost everything. Lesson: read about the financial products you are buying, about the psychology of investing, and learn how the economy works. The relationship between central banks, governments, stock markets, and the value of currencies. Don't get financial advice from Reddit. Ultimately, losing all of that money taught me a bunch. I was happy to make the mistake at 24 as I will not make it again. 2. I bought a bunch of stocks and other assets BTC, Tesla, Fiverr, Xiaomi. Between 2017 to 2019 when they were cheap and sold them after 2 to 3 months every time because THWRGOING no WH share. Lesson: same as above plus be patient and don't invest rent money plus contrarian investing works if people talk about it, it's already too late. Look for what no one speaks about. 3. I didn't work during the first 3 years of my bachelor's because I had to learn a foreign language and go drop resumes, which I was both too scared and lazy to do. I did get a job eventually, as a waiter, and was fired after 2 weeks. I didn't pursue further. Lesson: you only get out of something as much as you are willing to invest, plus not earning money kills self-esteem. 4. I bought around a dozen of plane tickets without checking the dates properly and had to pay to change them or cancel and buy new ones. Lesson: check better and focus. 5. I negotiated my salary down. I felt the rate I was earning was too high and put too much pressure on me to deliver quality I wasn't sure I could deliver. I negotiated my salary from €11 or hour to €9 or hour. I was 17. Not to brag, but as it turned out, I ended up being the best student the manager ever had in 20 years and remains the only one he ever gave a bonus to €20. Lesson: you grow when you are under pressure and required to get out of your comfort zone and do something you have never done. Making mistakes is okay even when you get paid. Don't solicit salary based on your assurance, but based on what the market is willing to pay you and the size of the problem you solve. 6. I bought a bunch of stuff under an emotional state. Gary Halbert, I think, talks about not making decisions when you are angry, hungry, lonely, or sad that I ultimately regretted buying. One of them was a ski trip for €500 that I managed to resell to someone else eventually, but what a hassle has it been. Lesson: don't buy a bunch of stuff in an emotional state, and make your financial decisions in the morning. Not at 1 a.m. 7. This story made me think that I also did the same with bikes. I bought random bikes thinking I'd flip them, while I had no bike repair training lol. I ended up selling them after 2 years or so, for the same price I had bought them at. Lesson: learn how flipping works before doing it. I certainly made more. I'll add them as I go. I think buying a BMW when I first had $10K in the bank was pretty bad. Luckily I was able to sell it with a profit, but altogether it was a pretty time and money consuming decision. Oh wow, so I don't have that many stories. But I also did some stupid investing around March or April 2020. I could cover all my losses with my Bitcoin gains, but still I was just stupid and naive. And traded with too many emotions. Lesion, emotions are bad. Okay, maybe not, but just do enough research before doing something that you're missing experience in. I was at a yard sale back in 2015 and they happened to have a car for sale. It was a really clean Toyota Camry for $3,000. I forget the exact year and mileage, But it was something like a 1999 with under 100,000 miles. I was like, oh wow. That's an amazing deal. I'm going to flip this car and sell it for $4,500. I didn't have a clue about how to flip cars. I didn't have a mechanic look at it. I don't personally have any knowledge about how to evaluate a car. I didn't even do any online research on vehicles of a similar make, model, year, and mileage to see what the going rate was. All I did was drive the car around the block. I went to the bank and withdrew $3,000 and handed it to the people and they signed the title over to me. Woohoo! This was going to be amazing. The next day, I took some beautiful photos of the car and posted the ad on Craigslist. The day after that, the driver's side window rolled down and wouldn't roll back up. Fortunately, I had a garage where I could keep the car when it rained. Fixing the window cost like $150. There was also a problem where the car made a sort of thumping sound at higher speeds. Someone told me that the tires had flat spots on them from where the car was sitting so long. I showed the car to a few people and they all brought a mechanic with them to check it out. I started thinking, people would ask me hard questions like how long have you owned it and why are you selling it, and I ended up looking super sketchy because I didn't want to admit that I had bought it solely to flip it. But I had obviously owned it for less than a month because it still had temporary tags on it. Then, a few people reported the Craigslist ad as a scam and my ad got taken down. I didn't understand why this had happened, but now I didn't have any more leads to look at the car. I ended up selling the car to the last guy who looked at it. He offered me $2,800 and I took it. By that time, it was a relief to just have it gone. So that was a failure. I chalked it up to a $350 lesson in why you should at least do a little bit of research and know what you're doing before you go and try to do something like flip a car. And as a girl who is mechanically clueless, I concluded, why bother? I'll just focus on making money in areas that I understand. LOL. Probably when I ordered 200 units of a product I had a hunch would sell well. I've sold about 20 of them, but it's been 2 years. The rest are in my parents' garage. Oh boy, where should I start? Maybe this one, buying a small yacht and not selling it directly after the initial 2 to 3 vacations we actually used it, now been paying for years to store it and marina fees, without really making use of it, as our life circumstances changed. Bought a brand new motorcycle for $16,000 when I didn't have the money. Crashed it 3 months later and lost my down payment and whatever I had paid up to that point. Probably not cashing out on GME before the restriction of buying it. Could have sold for around $120,000 from initial investment of $20,000. Back in February or Jan I believe. The first largest jump around $3xx. This is so sad, but I encouraged my dad to buy GME like 2 years ago. It absolutely took a nosedive and stayed there for 2 years. Then I taught him about covered calls, he sold one on it, got assigned, and it literally mooned the next week. Lol, I have stopped giving investment advice. Only do my own. Truth be told, the CC was a good move and he got out of a bad stock for a good price. Nobody knows the future or what Reddit will do next. Oh boy, I have a good story, one that happened quite recently. I'm still in the middle of verifying it was, in fact, a dumb decision. Will share next week. 1. Buying 3 Bitcoin in 2015ish for around $3 to $400 apiece. I would have had an extra $180,000 in the bank today. Then selling at a loss a few months later, because I needed a down payment for a car. Which brings me to 2. Buying a new car while working at a restaurant and living with my parents. Terrible purchase that set me back years financially. I was more excited to buy the used Toyota that replaced it, than I was to buy the new car itself. I bought BTC in 2017 with my parents' money, like $6,300 that went to $8,600 and then evaporated to like $1,800. I didn't sell tut and now that same crypto is worth like $15,500. I haven't sold yet but definitely don't want to be the one holding the bag again. Also, studying literature in college lol. When I first heard of this magical coin that would make it easier to deposit to play poker in 2011, remember buying my first BTC when under $5 and started to poker on seals with clubs. Quite a few $200 to $500 dollar pots were played. Never would imagine those 100 coin pots would be worth north of 5 million. But never thought twice it was an investment those early days, just an easy way to play some poker. Bought a Rolex for $18,000. Sold it for $10,000 cause I needed the money. I really wouldn't consider it dumb though. The watch gave me so much joy and motivation. I was actually quite sad that I was forced to sell it. I've tried a lot of things that have flat failed. I've learned from every one of them. I make sure that the losses are a small percentage of my investments. I only use money that I can afford to write off. And they must have huge upside potential in order to even give them a try. I've also done a lot of things on a whim. When I was in my early 40s, I got a wild hair and I went to law school at night and on the weekends. We were in the middle of a horrible recession that had started around 1990. I was working at my career all day and going to school all night. By the end of the first year, I figured out that I did not want to be an attorney. But, I was there and holding my own. So I finished and got my JD by the end of law school. I had morphed my career appraiser, broker and investor into being an expert witness and doing litigation support. Yes, going to law school was expensive. But, I ended up making more per hour than my attorneys that hired me. I guess I'm telling you that even bad decisions can be made right sometimes. If nothing else, you learn from them. I did the same. In 2009 I had just moved to Texas and was too depressed to go to school. I remember surfing the web all day looking for ways to make money online. In one of those blogs there was mining Bitcoin on the list. So I downloaded the entire Bitcoin blockchain on my cheap Walmart laptop and started mining it on my laptop. I was making 1 Bitcoin a week mining. But I had to keep the laptop on all day and night. I remember getting annoyed with it because they weren't worth much, so I deleted the wallet from my computer. Those few Bitcoins that I mined in '09 would have been worth $100,000 today. I don't regret it because you just didn't know at the time what exactly Bitcoin was and the potential it had. Just like the guy that spent 2,000 Bitcoins on a large pizza. Worst, let him go next have free reign with credit cards and bank accounts, to the point where I had to file Chapter 7. I regret it. One recently that had been a good reason and surprisingly turned out okay, overpaying for a Shopify store. Will being patient with my next biz acquisition be the next mistake? I sure hope not. Man, I feel you, yes, and often. You don't know until 10 years later. Ouch, probably buy a car. It is money that I could use in my business. But also, at that time, I didn't have one. Does being broke count? I didn't even have any money to lose most of my life XT. I don't know if I am allowed to laugh, but it is kinda funny, no harm intended. I counted one of the mistakes as not having a job when I should have gotten one, so, you may explain why you were broke, and the mistake you made by not doing something, which let you remain broke. 2 business ones. 1. I was buying a custom gelato cart for €5,000 to operate as a pop-up at this high-end venue. I didn't think it was worth spending €60 to fly out and check it at any point during the build. When it arrived I quickly realized they had used terrible components that made it barely functional but drastically reduced the quality of the product. It also arrived 6 weeks late. Embarrassing for me and the brand, although it looked the part at least. Managed to barely recoup the money in the last couple of months in the season, but it's going to need replacing or improving already. Lots of lessons learnt on that one, too. Registering my business for VAT sales tax when starting the business when I wasn't actually legally required to. Basically, I have been paying 20% of my revenue to the government for no reason for almost 3 years. This was a big mistake, done for the right reasons. I didn't have enough money to start my business and was reliant on claiming back some of the costs of the machinery in order to do so, which I could only do by registering. Lessons: lots of other stupid small personal financial decisions involving buying stuff you don't need, spiffing money on nights out and losing and breaking things. I'm much better in that regard now. Models and bottles. Going back a ways, but it sticks out as totally dumb. Was going to try and do credit card processing sales at one time. Bought a $500 watch to look great and feel great from a jewelry store I wanted to close as their payment processor. How could they not use me after this purchase? Rigged. Sold the watch for $200 and never closed the deal. Had zero clue about a lot of things then. Yeah, still. Ha 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 ha. This is awesome. He got $50 million working for Facebook. Did they give him stocks? The worst financial mistake I made was deciding to become a music producer at 22. It was a waste of 6 years of my life. It might have been okay if I hadn't used university and working on music as an excuse to not have a full-time job. This thread forced me to try to remember a lot of stuff that I've forgotten. Invested $5,000 in a mall franchise that sold fake celebrity jewelry, wish I could remember its name. Invested $20,000 in what ended up to be a real estate Ponzi scheme. I got lucky because I withdrew my money 2 months before it imploded. Google Radical Bunny. Invested money into 2 residential lots in St. George, Utah. Eventually sold them but lost around $30,000. Bought new construction home for $340,000. When it was completed it was worth $450,000, but builder had a no sale clause for 1 year and I also didn't want to pay the taxes, so I hoped to keep it 2 years. Ended up getting foreclosed on. My most significant loss would have to be about 4 years ago. I put down $40,000 on a block of land that I gave to a developer. I didn't know it at the time, but you could give them as little as $3,000, and they would secure land for you. About 6 months later, when I went through a relationship breakup, I lost it all as I couldn't afford to build a home on one income alone. The developer didn't refund anything as it was written in the contract that they didn't have to. Other than that, I haven't had any big losses. Touch wood. Well, I avoided a pretty big mistake here in launching this service. In doing research for a service provider to handle this project, I researched several firms. The first one I joined I spent $1,400 on only to learn that it did not fit my needs at all. It was more suitable for a local restaurant who wanted to message customers about free drinks or discounted pizzas. Luckily I was able to get a refund on it once I learned it would have cost me $65,000 a year to do what I wanted to do. By far and away the worst financial decision I ever made was relying on eBay as a selling platform. When I sold my auto repair and restoration business in 2004, I started selling vintage used car parts on eBay full-time. This was basically like printing money, as everything I listed it was auctions only in those days got sold, usually on multiple bids, for top dollar. Keep in mind I had been in the vintage car business for 20 years at this point and was well versed on the value and target market for these items. Fast forward a couple of years and everything is going great, making excellent sales and very profitable. I decided I needed more inventory and I was able to buy a huge inventory like a 30-year collection. This was a very expensive purchase and I borrowed the money for this. I also had purchased over 100 vintage parts cars on borrowed money and had a small salvage yard to pull parts from. I also added 2 people to the staff, including a person dedicated to making eBay listings and a dedicated packaging and shipping guy. I was relying on eBay almost exclusively, and this was a really bad move. Only a couple months after I get this inventory, eBay sales pretty much died. Also at pretty much the same time, eBay made us take our phone number out of our listings, and this greatly affected our sales. We went from the phone sales being 10 to 20 items per day to basically nothing. I found out through the sellers' forums and other blogs that eBay had changed their algorithm to basically hide small sellers, favoring the big boys, diamond sellers. The combination of these 2 things spelled disaster, and I was forced to let everyone go and do everything myself, as there just was not enough sales to have staffed. I am still paying for the huge loan I took out, and figure this adventure cost me well in excess of 1.5 M, including my lost time, as I worked for basically free for years to just pay this loan. I am just now starting to get back on my feet with another business, but that eBay adventure was an absolute disaster financially. The lesson is never ever give up control of your sales process, the commandment of control, to a third party, or you are just basically their employee and they can shut you down, fire you on a whim. I am now back to the business of restoring and repairing vintage muscle cars, and am so glad to be done with eBay. What a story. This could have been an entire thread by itself. I must say I am very happy with this thread and all that I am learning. I thought it was the end of the world when I lost in the stock market, but then when we put things in perspective. Who the hell would pay $65,000 a year to message people about free drinks and discounted pizza now? This would make another great thread, like said. I think the other important lesson here is something akin to don't test the depth of a river with both feet. The business was going phenomenally well, but maybe the huge 1.5 M move was just a bit too much. If it is possible to do something like this in chunks, one step at a time, that's better. I had a similar experience on a smaller scale. I had a side gig where I made jewelry for Etsy in my little office area with the espresso bar. When they went public, that whole source of sales on Etsy died instantly. I sold off the materials this last year at a dead loss, and I quit doing any jewelry. I didn't need the side business, but it was fun for a hot minute. Again, it was a control issue. Oh, and the virus shut down the espresso business. So now I have a very comfortable office that has a nice, big espresso machine. Hello, and thank you for the reply. Just to clarify, I did not take out a 1.5 M loan. The loans for everything totaled a little over $500K, and at that point I had been in business close to 3 years with great sales and over 60% margins, so I was not just testing the water. The 1M additional I referred to was my lost time for close to 10 years of this disaster. I could not just walk away from this, as I stupidly pledged my home, property, tools and most other assets as collateral for this loan. When I tried to get the bank to work with me, they said pay the loan or lose your property. I pretty much had no choice except to just work constantly selling parts anywhere I could for whatever I could get out of them. I was also doing repairs on vintage cars to help out, although not devoting full time to this yet. I finally was able to build up enough business in my classic muscle cars restoration shop to completely stop with the parts business and devote full time to the shop. Now I am restoring high-end muscle cars and have a year-long waiting list. The service is quite affordable if you have 1,000 customers who are messaged a few times per month. Not for 50,000 customers who might get messages 4x a week. I don't like to admit that. But in 2011 my 10-year-old son was exited by a new thing called Bitcoin. I refuse to see that legit, but as a father or son project I bought 5,000 Bitcoins at €1. In 2012 I sold them at a profit of 500%. I'd like to cry. Ouch is right to say the least. Ha. Dating a hitchhiker, as MJ puts it in, cost me £20k plus. Big oaf on this one. You did dodge a bullet. Upgrade to gold. Oh no, care to tell? No worries if it is too painful. When I was a baby engineer, 7 years out of college, I had racked up $100,000 in company stock. The market kept going higher and higher. This was the mid-80s, and the market had traded in a range for my entire adult life. The only way to make any money was to sell when it got too high, and buy in again when it dropped. So in 1986 I sold the whole thing and put the money into other investments, which pretty much all tanked. I was still scared to put the money back into the market because it was too high. So I missed the entire 1,400 to 10,000 run-up in the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the biggest bull market in history. Finally I said, this is crazy, I'm missing out on all this profit, so I dumped all my money back into the market. In January of 2000. Just before the dot-com bubble popped. Most of my other mistakes I can mostly blame on my ex-wife. Like buying a Mexican timeshare, couldn't talk her out of it, and investing in other hot ideas like oil leases and etc. Enjoying this post a lot. My worst was not buying back into property in 2009 or 10 after selling around the first top in 2007. I made a lot during the GFC but then didn't switch my view in 2009 when things turned around. I had been so excited by what I thought was a great ability to time the market, that I held on to my doom and gloom view, not realizing that the economy had become almost irrelevant as we were now living in times. But I made it much worse by then trying to get my money back by day trading. My question is, how have you got past losses? It seems to me that if you don't process the experience, you keep repeating it. I got stuck in regret and getting angry at myself. A friend of mine lost 38 mil in the GFC and then went on rebuild almost straight away and now financially free again. Just like joining an MLM scam to recover from a previous MLM scam, telex free and uneaten it. Fortunately I guess I didn't make anyone join because it smelled bad just after joining. Or take a 6K credit to fund me as a freelance instead of trying to sell my services before leaving my job. Add to that another 5K of credit card debt to pay the bills. And that debt burden has mined my confidence for a long time. Those are the worst ones by far, but there are more. It seems like I'm used to making the same mistake twice, but at least I learn the lesson after the second time. For me, I saw the money I lost as the price I would have paid to get the knowledge that I got. I also thought that had I gambled my money the same way 10 years later than I did, I could have had 1 or 2 zeros to the losses. It's not painful, but I don't think there's much value in the story referencing the fast lane distinctions from the You Deserve chapter. This is the type of guy I was dating. At some point when you love and invest in someone like this, there's almost a reversal. To quote Robert Greene, you can die from someone else's misery. Emotional states are as infectious as diseases. You may feel you are helping the drowning man, but you are only precipitating your own disaster. The unfortunates sometimes draw misfortune on themselves. They will also draw it on you. I'm glad I managed to take full responsibility and make the right decision for myself, and learn from it. It's not uncommon to hear of entrepreneurs being taken for a ride by greedy partners. I'm grateful I learned the lesson now instead of when there's 10x or 100x the money at stake. Mine happened on the buy side. I paid $24,000 for a book of business a couple of years ago. Ended up with just a couple thousand in revenue. A lot of the clients just ghosted during the transition. This doesn't sound like a lot, until you consider that my revenue the year before the acquisition was only $150,000. I learned that you don't buy single employee or owner businesses unless you're very experienced at transitioning them. Most of these are tied directly to the owner, and clients are used to dealing with that one person. Switching is painful for them, so it gives them an excuse to shop around or do the work themselves. This is crazy. Was on the phone tonight with a baby boomer who is willing to sell his blue-collar one-man band, then you had to go and post this. But this potential deal would involve a truck and equipment. Two mechanics said it's worth the price just for the truck and equipment without the book and website. Ha! Don't let me talk you out of the deal. But, do make sure you do thorough due diligence, and have a plan for transitioning customers over. Probably when I got married, damn this. I am no financial dummy. I ran a very successful commodity fund with $10 million in client money back in 2000. And yet my return in my stock accounts is negative. I can't seem to buy something and leave it alone. I've always been more of the trader mentality, and that doesn't always work out so great. Thank God for real estate, which is too hard to sell, so I hang on to it for decades. That's where all my net worth came from. What I am about to say may be very stupid, so please, correct me if I am wrong. Isn't the purpose of a commodity fund to sell for profit? Doesn't investing in stocks and investing in commodities suddenly become two opposite activities, where you want to hold the stocks as long as possible, while you want to sell the commodity as fast as possible? There are long-term and short-term strategies in both stocks and commodities. The fund I ran used strategies I developed that generally held positions on the order of 1 to 2 days. And actually it's misleading to call it a commodity fund, even though that was the official term. I traded futures, but mostly not commodity futures. It was mostly stock index futures, S&P 500, ND 100, bond futures, etc. Most people make money in stocks by holding for a long time. But I have friends who make over 100% per year with short-term trading in stocks and options. I bought a stock at the same time index funds with my mom's money when I was a fresh graduate out of college. Hold it for the long term and not taking any single peso of it. The stock went up to 30% and this year minus 40%. I still hold them waiting to rebound. Lesson learned, put yourself in the driver's seat. Liquidity is greater than paper gains. I was sold by the fake gurus conducting seminars who have no definite applications about what they are teaching, and at the end of the presentation, they are promoting a system that costs $50,000. Attended board games to get rich, and then after the game, what to do next? Lesson learned, invest in learning to those teachers who eat their own recipe, teachers who are walking the talk. Now, I started investing in my own efforts, set myself as a lifetime student of the game of being rich, maximizing my time, grit, and the grind as a realtor for the rich people and businesses looking for expansions here in the Philippines and not relying on any financial institutions and the government. A thread like this means so much more to me than the inspiration or pretty hollow example threads. I don't take comfort in anyone's failings, but it helps to be reminded it happens to smart people. For me, my dumbest financial decision has been keeping my savings in cash for the day that big opportunity comes, instead of investing it in index funds while I wait. My formal education was in finance, and I've always been a sensible investor, and had I invested on a larger and consistent, but still safe, scale compared to what I did intermittently over the years, I would have hundreds of thousands more in savings. I always feared the right opportunity would come while the market was on a downward swing, and I'd miss it, so instead I missed large parts of the longest stock market gain in history. In 2017, from about October to December, invested in cryptocurrency coins now referred to as shitcoins. My wallet grew from an initial investment of about $20,000 to over $120,000. Was waiting for just the right moment to cash out, but that moment never came. In 2018 the bubble popped and that $120,000 wallet dwindled to about $15,000. Cashed out $10,000 and left $5,000 worth of coins still there. Now I can't even get access to the wallet. Lesson learned, don't get greedy. Control emotions and always have a profit-taking plan when it comes to trading. During the Amazon FBA craze about 4 years ago, I opened up 4 credit cards with a limit of about 20k total and a PayPal working credit of about 10k. Went on a crazy FBA shopping spree, lots of prices tanked and was stuck with about 18k in credit card debt. Set my flipping back about 3 years and killed my credit. Total idiot, will never do that again. Hi. The most dumbest decision I've made so far is buying an 20 milliliters eye cream with $80. The problem is I didn't use it after that, and I bought it because I thought I might use it somehow. In Vietnam, and for a woman, $80 is a paycheck for 2 working days. I could have done a lot of useful thing with my 2 days' time. Now I can't take it back. Here's one that someone posted here recently. Ignorance of washes guy out. Just before the credit crunch in 2007, I invested £10,000 on a Bulgarian offer plan ski property, and lost the lot, with the property never even getting built. Dumb. However, a few years later I made this look like nothing when I decided to move away from investing on the financial markets to instead take up gambling under the guise of trading on these things called binary options. I gambled away well over £100,000, 2 houses, and racked up £70,000 in debt too. So in hindsight, not my finest decision. Ouch. Binary options are the devil's work. I think they have been banned now. Here's my story of trading if you'd like to read it. You will probably recognize a lot of the thinking processes. I, too, started trading to try and undo a previous mistake, and that is why I am now very curious about how people process losses. How have things been for you since then? They really are. Yes, I think you can still trade them in certain countries, but UK-based companies are definitely banned from providing them now. I'm not sure if you can still access them through a company not based in the UK though, but as you can imagine, I don't want to find out. Thanks for sharing your post. A lot of it definitely resonates, such as the classic addict's downward spiral. My story in a nutshell was one of slowly transitioning from investing to trading, and finally to outright gambling, and because the lines that separate them are thin and blurry, I barely even realized I was gambling like a degenerate by the time I was. I still thought I was just trading, which was probably also one of those justifying my behavior type things you talk about in your post. I started investing in about 2008, but it was 2011 when I fell into the binary options trap, same year you've started your trading journey. By 2015 I was sleeping in my car. Thankfully I have bounced back well. Completely recovered, debt-free. Never trade or anything remotely like that. Have recently bought a house for cash with my brother, so only joint-owned, and pursuing my entrepreneurial ambitions. I think the fundamental issue at stake here is education. People watch The Big Short and download Robinhood during the end credits. The next day, they're gambling their house with puts on Tesla. I think if you take the time to observe the market, read The Intelligent Investor, become aware of your emotions and stay off WSB, you'll already be better than the average retail trader out there. Reading about wash sales, I still do not understand how that $800,000 bill is possible. It should have only reduced the tax deduction he could take for losses. So how on earth? Yes, I think that's often the case. Trading looks so easy in hindsight, and I cannot tell you how many newbie traders I have spoken with who convince themselves that they are somehow special and that the terrible odds don't apply to them. In more general terms, human brains are terrible at stats. Huge, but very unlikely gains, for example lottery. Day trading success draw us in like bees round a honey pot. We lose all rational decision-making capacity and forget that the applicable equation is value equals probability of success x potential gain. There was an Amazon FBA craze 4 years ago. Was this a craze around buying existing operations or starting one? I thought the craze was happening now. If you're trading a stock daily, racking up losses on it but also gains, and every gain is the only thing the IRS is looking at. You'll have a nice capital gain on paper. This person had $45 in transactions, with only $45,000 in profit. I wouldn't have been able to put it better myself, 100% agreed. The craze now is INSAs and NFT, not that the latter is worth anything, but that's another topic. Online business broker listings have a lot of FBA businesses for sale. FBA is easily the vast majority of e-commerce listings. INSAs is definitely growing in popularity, but NFT is just a craze being peddled by the media and speculators. The answer to your question has just a few steps. You learn from that mistake or failure. You drill down and figure out what part of the whole situation was your faulty move or moves. What sunk the ship? Sounds so simple. It's not. What you don't understand, you're bound to do by rote and repeat in the future. Then you adjust your glasses. Part of your problem is how you view money. The money you lost is not a unique thing that can never be recovered, like a piece of art or a lost loved one. Money is a commodity, it can be bought and sold. It's fungible, it can be replaced or interchanged for another of the same value. It's only money, not blood. Then, realize that you now have an advantage that the other newbies around you don't have. It's much easier to do something that you have done before. Even if you failed, you gain insight and experience in your efforts. Each time you do that sprint, you get better and better. You intuitively know where to find the stepping stones and where the potholes are in the journey. And here's a little truism for you. The guy who gets the most emotional in a negotiation loses. Since you're getting angry at yourself, you're setting yourself up for failure and loss in the future. Rewrite your story of what happened. What did you do right? What could you have done better? You and your inner voices must become friends. It was before all the crazy restrictions. Buying from big brick stores and reselling on Amazon FBA. I was about to get $10,000 in Bitcoin in 2015. A friend came up with this idea, a bar in the city, Buenos Aires. Ended up giving the money to him. The bar lasted 2 months. 60 days. I liked cars since I was a kid. So when I had a chance to get into the car hobby after moving to the state, I jumped on it. I spent a lot of money and time on cars. All of them are down the drain at this point. The biggest mistake of them all was buying an used BMW M3 for $7,000 that was raced on track day every month. When the engine blew, I entrusted it with the wrong friend to fix it for me. Friend pretty much stole the remaining engine, transmission, car computer and returned an empty shell to me. At the end, sold the car shell for $1.4 thousand and kept all the lessons I learned. Making dumb financial decisions is not only about money, but also about trusting the wrong people. Very interesting. Do other people here give themselves permission to forgive themselves? Yes, I made some dumb moves when I was young. Yes, I still make some dumb moves today. But, I must remind myself that I made the best decision I could. I used my experiences, education, and information that I had at that time. Now I have the 20/20 vision of hindsight. Some of my biggest blunders have been necessary stepping stones toward great and small successes later. If I hadn't put my face out there to get it slapped, I could not have been ready to create the subsequent wins. That truism allows me to forgive the missteps and accept my human limitations. The ones that are harder for me to accept are the other category. There are times when I do everything just right. I know what I'm doing. I have done it successfully before. And it all falls apart. I have a friend who always reminds me that it's better to be in rhythm with the universe than to be right. Being right is not a guarantee of success. There's a time and a season for everything. I've had to learn to accept the fact that some things and situations are simply not within our control. My dumbest financial decision is not only about the amount of money I've wasted but also the place I spent it. I played an online role-playing game for years and spent a hilarious amount of 5k mostly on cosmetics stuff that just enhances looks but has no further impact on the gameplay. Way worse than the money I spent was the time I lost playing that game though. Over 8.000 hours, that's almost a year of my life. Luckily that's in the past, and for over 2 years I didn't either play any game or waste time to consume other media like shows or movies. I just focus on enhancing my knowledge and skills as well as working on a business idea I'm having. Few months ago I also added regular lifting to my hobby of self-improvement. It sounds to me that you learned a couple of important lessons from playing this game. You learned the money you spend must count, and simply cosmetics are a waste. You also learned that you must get value for the time you spend. We have many seniors around us who haven't learned these two important lessons. Congrats. Shouldn't they also see the losses? Wash sales can get confusing. From what I remember is this: if you sold Tesla stock at a $4,000 loss and bought back the stock within a wash sale period, the $4,000 is disallowed. So if then the next trade you made $4,000 on Tesla and break even, it isn't to Washington, you get taxed on the $4,000, not $0. In other words, you got taxed $1,600 to break even. At 40% tax rate. If he is trading in and out of the same stock at a $45 million clip, I can see how the big tax bill comes into play. Does the same apply when you BTC buy to close a short option in the red? Because that would be a big yikes. I bought a Jeep Cherokee Trailhawk, which is quite expensive in Europe. The car cost me around €45k, but at least, I bought it cash. I sold it a few months ago for half the price, and 2 weeks later, the new owner started to have some mechanical problems with the car. Now he will most likely take me to court because he claims that I am responsible for the car issues. I have no regret about this situation, as I had to make a shitty financial decision in order to learn the hard what it's like to take dumb decisions. It also totally changed my relationship with money. I am the only one responsible for this situation, and instead of wasting my energy on complaining, I focus on ways to reduce the impact of this situation on my life. 1. Getting married. Biggest financial mistake. 2. Getting talked into a business partnership when my online portal was doing well. P.S. Maybe I just don't play well with others. So, on number 1. Did he spend your money while you were together, or did he get it in the divorce? Or both? On number 2, what did he say he was adding to your business to get you to say yes? What did he actually contribute or rip away? Without knowing the details, I would suspect that you trusted these people. They talked a good game. And then they major let you down. So, when did you know that it was all going south in each situation? What are your lessons from all of this? It's a lot deeper than don't get married and don't take on partners. Why did you think that you needed these relationships and these particular people in the first place? What attracted you to the situations, and why did you choose these particular people? What were the commonalities in the two situations? They sound very similar. What has changed since you made these decisions? Would you still be attracted to them, and would they be attracted to you? Have you changed enough that they would now run away when they saw you coming? Do you look in your mirror and see a different person now? Are you still the same person on the other end of all of this? How have you grown? This was a very old comment. I ended up selling over 140 of them and thinking about ordering more. This biz really did start making money. Mine was buying a Dan Lak course 4 years ago. His copywriting is damn good. Every time I get an email from him, my eyes always gravitate to the subject line used. So it wasn't the product, but perhaps marketing and/or execution? home and land package in what turned out to be a bit of a crappy suburb. Negative gearing you? They even recommended the property agent attached to the builder's LOL to use for finding and managing tenants. Easy. They whacked the first applicant and she did 30k damage straight away. Couldn't be rented out for over 6 months. I ended up breaking even almost when I sold it 3 years later. Lost a lot of hair over it though. So much for cash positive negative gearing lol, what a sucker. Then I read. Absolutely. That being said, my execution and marketing are still a bit weak and I'm not totally convinced this product is a winner or not. But it has been sellable when I get up and go to the customers. Buying a timeshare, joining MLM scheme, trying to time the market in 2008, running up credit card debt lol. I think I'm a slow learner. Say my finance to BMW once I graduated from college and got a full-time job. My debt increased and the car was giving me troubles. I got another car that was more reliable. Lesson: take the time to learn about assets versus liabilities. Focus on building your wealth. Buying dividend shares in 2017, and selling in March 2020. Lost about 20k from that one plus any dividends they would have produced. Sold a car in April 2020 for 24k, it's worth about 34k in this market. Buying a gaming PC for work. I ended up losing 3 years to gaming addiction and who knows how money in opportunity cost. Buy a Mac, never look back. Buying a course without doing due diligence as well as feeling good for the moment, action faking. Lost almost $600 in mum's money in the midst of the pandemic. Use the Mac for work, depreciate it on your taxes. Investing mid-6 figures in several normally great performing mutual funds about 2 months before the September 11th terrorist attack in NYC, and then on top of that allowing the now ex-wife access to much of the remainder. Bad, bad, bad. 20 years later it still ticks me off, so I try not to think about it and look forward instead of backward. I spot the DeMartini coaching method in your questions. Not a fan. Learning is inevitable. Everything affects everything. We just get up and get on with it. Number 1. Quitting job with Pepsi in late 90s after 4.5 years in, when stocks vested at 5 years. Many people who stayed at the same job are millionaires from the stock as they did not touch it and just let it build. Number 2. Passing up to join a startup on a job offer with equity at early stage and 6 months later it brought in $85 million in funding for a near unicorn valuation. Number 3. Pissing away 100s of BTC through poker and wallet mismanagement from 2012 to 2017. Number 4. Gambling addiction from age 12 to 48. Lost so much of my life earnings. Quitting gambling was the best move I ever made as watching the leaks being plugged is unreal and I have so many options today that I did not have before. I think that my entire life I was doing huge financial mistakes. I do not even want to rank them. 9. When I was a kid 2005 to 2012, I wasted over €5,000 on playing Yu-Gi-Oh! 8. When I wanted to pursue a bachelor's degree 2011 to 2014, I chose physics because my chemistry teacher told me to do so. Instead, I should have studied computer science from the beginning, but I have listened to my mother who told me that I would do badly in CS because I do not know how to program. This led me to depression due to 100-hour-long work weeks in physics, and my jobs would be also paid badly since knowledge about physics is not very practical. In the end, I switched majors when pursuing my master's degree. 7. I was studying computer science in Germany, so I did not have to pay the fees. In 2015, I earned around €8k that I did not invest because I did not know that I could do so. 6. In 2018, I finished my studies and had around €25k in savings. I was familiar with Bitcoin at that point but did not want to invest the money because I did not know about the halvings. 5. At the end of 2018 I decided to buy a house on mortgage because the rents were going up consistently. Now, instead of paying €550 per month for rent, I have to worry about paying €1,100 per month because if I do not pay the mortgage off in 15 years, the bank can increase the interest rate from 2% to any value. So even rates like 18% and more per year are possible. 4. In January 2020 I invested some of my money into the stock market. Then the coronavirus spread out, so I panicked, believing that the markets will crash for a long time. One of my younger colleagues advised me to buy more, but I did not follow his advice. 3. In August 2020 I wasted €1,200 on a driver's license for trailers. Why? No idea. 2. In October 2020 I finally learned about the Bitcoin halvings and invested around €39k when a BTC was at 13k. My assets went up to €45k in a month. Then, I was thinking that XRP was going up more quickly and reallocated my Bitcoins to XRP when one Ripple went 59 € per coin. Unfortunately, XRP went down to 51 €, so I panicked, sold my assets. Then, XRP went down to 7 € per coin, and what was I doing? Bingo, I was crying too much, and instead of buying more crypto, I did not invest my 39k for 2 more months. Well, then BTC went up to 28k per coin. 1 month ago, while having a job as an app developer, I program using React, GraphQL, REST, TypeScript and Python that earns me €75k per year at the age of 28. I listened to a 19-year-old influencer that told me to go into business. She told me that she earns lots of thousands of dollars per month, and she recommended me to read several books. Out of those, I have read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and by. Later, I also read on my own. I was annoyed as hell because I do so many things incorrectly, and literally every teenager could have done less mistakes than me. Being completely bored out at my job as a software developer, at which I work 1 hour a day of 8 productively, I was asking my boss whether he can give me more challenging tasks like working as a software architect, which he refused. I was searching for more challenging projects as well, but he refused again because he wanted me to help his company and not the customer of his company. Disagreeing with him completely, I have decided and told my boss that I will quit my project in December. I have to wait this long due to German laws. Now, I try to become an influencer that talks about finance and IT. On TikTok, this did not work out. I do not even get any feedback due to dry and boring content. On Instagram, I got 1,3k views on a video within an hour, but my account got banned by Facebook and I do not know why. YouTube seems more promising, but again, takes its time, and I really hate that the audience wants to get rich quickly results instead of complex advice. Still, I have created a habit of producing daily videos on TikTok during the last 2 weeks. Most likely, this will be the biggest financial mistake that I have done. But I go on failing. I hope you still have those Yu-Gi-Oh cards. They may worth some money. Unfortunately, I don't. I know that some of the older cards like those from LOB are worth more now, but I have sold them in 2014. I invested in a game development company, $6 figures. It had 70 employees, was on the brink of delivering a brand new game, and the buzz was all over. My investment was debt with convertibility feature after 3 months to equity. The company had been in existence for over 5 years and delivered a few successful games to the market already. This was supposed to be the next big win. I saw the game, loved it, put up the money and went to Shanghai. Came back a month later to learn private debt company funding them called the debt company went into liquidation. I learned a lot about bankruptcy. I was a shareholder in all kinds of meetings. It was stupid because I invested based on people who were referred to me by trusted friends. I failed to look at the financials and how levered they were, in all my excitement. One of the stupidest investment decisions I've ever made. Good tax write-off. That's the only good thing. What I noticed most about your post is that, despite each small setback, over time you grew and became more successful. You went from I chose physics instead of CS for my degree to having a job as an app developer. You went from being broke and in debt to having $39,000 to invest in crypto. You've made significant amounts of progress, and you are being too hard on yourself. This book comes to mind. Spending about $80,000 creating a hair loss product like Hims in which I didn't know exactly how it worked. Then creating a brand and branding website, paying an advertiser $5,000 a month plus ad spend without knowing what he was doing. In the end I ended up with some great looking bottles that no one bought and ended up putting all of them in the trash, except for one I keep next to my desk for a reminder. Also, I spent way too much time flipping cars justifying that I was making money off them when it was a huge time suck and when I should have been investing that money into real estate. Dealing with lowball offers will grind you down. Buy the car if you must, finance it, and use the cheap money to make money elsewhere. Plus many more, but they're all lessons I needed to pay to learn, I suppose. Oh, I am not hard on myself, but mistakes are part of the process. This is exactly the reason why I decided to quit my job. No mistakes provide no opportunity to learn. By the way, if anyone likes to listen to more of my stories like that, you might be interested in visiting my TikTok channel. Mostly, I am trying to give financial content similar to MJ's books on a more simplified level, and also, I react to other successful financial and not only financial influencers. Later, I plan to go to it and then to add some content on IT. But I also create different content. For instance, yesterday I discovered a trend: name a country without A and I, so I created a rap video on that in German just for their lols. Edited admins, I have seen some people in this forum promoting their own social media channels. At this point, I would like to advertise mine, but am I allowed to do so according to the forum rules? The forum